How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. A lot of people have not done the math on Bitcoin recently, and they don't understand what's going to happen here soon. I want to talk to you about why Bitcoin's price is going to spike up. If you don't mind, hit subscribe, turn on the bell notification underneath the video to see future videos just like this one. I'm going to keep this one short, so stay through to the end. There's also a link down there to Margex in case you want to trade cryptocurrency on leverage. You can do that. They're going to improve the platform with some spot trading here soon too. And I know I talk about how you can make some money on some of these moves while the market's kind of boring, but also in this boring time in the market, you can also place your long. So that way, when we inevitably do pump up, most likely, right? When we inevitably do pump up, you're already well positioned. You're not like out to dinner with friends or sleeping or something like that. You already have your longs ready because we do have some volatility coming with the halving coming, and then also we have inflation data. We have a lot going on here very soon, so be ready. This is the boring part ahead of the Bitcoin halving, but it's not going to be boring for much longer. They also have something called an MP Shield, which helps prevent price manipulation liquidation. So definitely check that out underneath the video. Also, there is a link to HG Algo where it can give you bullish and bearish momentum signals. It can also tell you when to dollar cost average into the market or dollar cost average out of the market. And as you can see here on Bitcoin, we went from like 51,000 up to 51,600 or 700, and it flipped to bullish momentum, which could have made you a nice little chunk of money if you were in a leverage position. So just if you want to check that out, there is a link underneath the video. I think this is a huge, really good tool for the next bull run. Now, Bitcoin is what we're talking about here today. Bitcoin is scarce. We all know that. We've heard it. But like how scarce is it? Because it seems like there's a lot of Bitcoin going around. We hear news about people buying Bitcoin and the price doesn't always shoot up afterwards. There are OTC players, right? There's so much Bitcoin out there. There's so many entities that want to take profits. That's what people think, right? So many people think that we're just going to stay at this 50,000 to 53,000 range that they have all the time in the world. Maybe we'll drop back down, but you have to remember Bitcoin's extremely scarce, and I want to throw some numbers at you. So right now, the ETFs have been swallowing up Bitcoin, even though Grayscale's been selling. I made a video yesterday to talk about how they're not done selling, right? But they're slowing down selling a lot. Like yesterday or 2 days ago, was their lowest outflow day since the ETFs were approved. So they have 912,000 Bitcoin. Countries hold about 502,000 Bitcoin that we know of, right? There are other countries that probably hold it that don't talk about it. Public companies, 280,000 Bitcoin. Private companies, 477,000 Bitcoin. Bitcoin mining companies, about 52,000. That tells you, you know how much money goes into building out those miners and operations, and they can barely even get their hands on some Bitcoin. 42,000. So you start adding some of these numbers up. Okay, let's just look at ETFs, public companies, and private companies. We're not going to include countries. We're not going to include Bitcoin mining companies. These three different kinds of entities hold about 1.67 million Bitcoin. So a decent amount of Bitcoin. A lot of people don't realize how the halvings work. Like a lot of people that start buying Bitcoin don't know what halvings are even. And then they don't understand like the exponentiality? Yeah, exponentiality of how difficult it will be to mine the Bitcoin from here on out. Like if you didn't know, right now there's about 900 Bitcoin mined a day. By 2060, I believe I did the math, 2060, there's going to be less than one Bitcoin mined a day. Like there's a lot of difficulty adjustments that are going to happen that cause there to be less and less Bitcoin mined, and that means less and less Bitcoin sold. And that means when these entities want to go buy Bitcoin, they're going to have a hard time doing it. And the crazy thing is, there's 116 more years of Bitcoin halvings and mining, block rewards. There's less Bitcoin that's going to be mined over the next 116 years than is what is owned over the last few years by private and public companies and ETFs. Right? There's only 1.36 million Bitcoin left to be mined over the next 116 years, a lot of which is going to be in the next 10 years. So there's a lot of Bitcoin that's going to be mined, or there has been a lot of Bitcoin mined 93.5% of the supply has already been mined over the last 15. The last 6.5% is mined over the next 116. So if, let's say, if the ETFs want to double their holdings, and public companies want to double their holdings, and private companies want to double their holdings, right? They're going to have to buy from the existing supply. They're going to have to bid up the price. They're going to have to pay more. And this doesn't account for some of the entities trying to get in. Like over the last week, we heard about banks wanting to hold onto Bitcoin. This is breaking. U.S. Bank JP Morgan goes big on Bitcoin. The major U.S. bank plans to launch an actively managed Bitcoin fund exclusively for their wealth clients. And we heard this news last week. Major U.S. banks were reported last week to be exerting pressure on the SEC to greenlight trading of a spot Bitcoin ETF. I don't know this person that made this post. I don't know if all this is right, but some of it is. The U.S. banks did make an announcement last week, or did push against the SEC because they want to hold Bitcoin for their clients. And right now it's more expensive for them to do so compared to Bitcoin ETFs. So they want in on it. We also know that there are entities buying a lot of Bitcoin. For example, this person or this entity bought 26,139 Bitcoin. Made a video about this too, but there are people like this that randomly just get into Bitcoin. There are supposedly countries looking to buy Bitcoin, like Qatar's sovereign wealth fund wants to buy Bitcoin. Supposedly. They said maybe $500 billion worth of Bitcoin. It's $500 billion. That's going to shoot up the price. This is going to shoot up the price. Banks getting in are going to shoot up the price. Entities that have finally done compliance on the Bitcoin ETFs and realize that they need to be in on these Bitcoin ETFs are going to be buying up these shares and then causing these ETFs to own a lot more Bitcoin. There's so many people that haven't bought Bitcoin yet that will over the next year. Over the next 2 years, there's going to be FOMO, and FOMO brings in more people, which means more buying of Bitcoin, which is a flywheel effect. So, yeah, there's 116 years left of Bitcoin mining, block rewards that is, and there's not much Bitcoin left. So, yeah, the price is going to go up. The math is nuts. There's finite supply. Scarcity is setting in. Finally, 90% of the world that wasn't able to buy Bitcoin before can now buy Bitcoin comfortably in retirement accounts. They can sell options. They can take loans against it. They can do all the stuff that they like to do. So they're going to be buying Bitcoin, especially as the price goes up. More and more people cover it. More and more people talk about it. It goes up against every currency in the world. People are talking about how they missed out on it. Their neighbors are talking about how they made $1 million in Bitcoin. People are going to shift their attention to Bitcoin and buy up this supply. And yeah, there's some OTC buying, but as I showed this week, a lot of the OTC desks are running dry. Now, I think there's more going on there. Like, we know OTC buying happens. I saw someone comment like, I'm getting sick of all this OTC buying. It is what it is. If there wasn't an OTC desk, then we'd see huge price fluctuations to the upside and the downside, which would probably freak out some people. But OTC, if you don't know, just takes people that want to buy large amounts of Bitcoin and takes people that want to sell large amount of Bitcoin and hook them together. So that way there aren't massive price fluctuations where someone goes and sells 50,000 Bitcoin on Coinbase. And then someone else goes and buys $50,000 Bitcoin on Coinbase. Like, they just connect people. And yes, that can be frustrating sometimes, but you have to remember there's always a seller every time that there's a buyer, right? So we would see much bigger price fluctuations, but this isn't going to happen much longer. Like, think about who does these now. Of course, there are entities that maybe want to sell some Bitcoin. Maybe they've been happy with how much money they've made in Bitcoin in USD terms. Some of them are miners. Like, miners oftentimes sell OTC because they need to pay for electricity and stuff like that. So I think a lot of the Bitcoin being sold through OTC isn't necessarily shown, like the OTC desk. It doesn't show up in charts. It's like, it's even harder to find. But this isn't going to happen much longer because the entities that are mining, that get the new supply of Bitcoin, aren't going to have as much Bitcoin to sell with the different halvings coming up. And there's going to be a time where there's just not enough Bitcoin to supply to these people that want to buy Bitcoin. Like, how do you give Qatar enough Bitcoin? If they want to come in and buy $20 billion worth of Bitcoin, how do you supply that? It's extremely hard. They're going to have to go everywhere to buy as much as they can, because that's what, 400,000 Bitcoin, if I'm doing the math right. That's a lot of Bitcoin, right? That is a crap ton of Bitcoin to buy in one swoop. But there are entities that don't want to mess around with a couple $100 million. They want to buy billions and billions. And there will be a time when there's just no supply, that they're going to have to wait. They're literally going to have to push up the price and wait to get people to sell. Like, imagine some entity comes in and there's not enough Bitcoin to buy. So they start bidding up the price. They start buying more and more, right? And then eventually the way that they get people to sell it to them is it goes up to $60,000 and people take some profits, right? And then sell to these entities. And then they want to buy more, so they push up to 65,000. There are more sellers, that people that think that we're going to stop right ahead of prior all-time highs. And then these entities push up the price to 70,000. Then more people say, okay, I'll take some profits. And they just continue to swallow up the supply by forcing out people. And those people are maybe thinking a little bit short term. They're thinking, okay, well, I need to get out right now because there might be a pullback. But these entities are endless. There's endless money in the world. Keep that in mind. That if XYZ country wants to buy more Bitcoin, it's quite simple, right? They can just print more money and then go buy Bitcoin. They can issue cheap debt and buy Bitcoin. Like, if the US wanted to buy Bitcoin, they could push up the price, I don't know, 1,000% in a day. It's crazy to think about that, but they could literally do that. They come in and they bid up the price exponentially if they have a lot of money, and they can create their own money. So why not do that? There's that kind of stuff happening behind the scenes, or there will be that stuff happening very soon. So keep that in mind when you are running the math. There's not enough Bitcoin for people. And I realize I sound like a broken record to some people. They say, why do you keep on making videos that are similar, where you talk about how rare Bitcoin is, how Bitcoin's price is going to go up? Because some people don't understand it. We get new people in this channel every day too. And even if you've been around for a while, it's important to hit on all these different aspects, hit on the math, talk about this stuff to grow conviction. Because it's great to be invested in Bitcoin, but let's say you are you do have high conviction in Bitcoin, you like it a lot, but you allocate 0.5%. Right? That's not going to probably be life-changing, but what if you get more conviction? What if you believe in it more? What if you learn more? You put in those hours, and then you go to 2% allocation. That's going to make a big difference in your overall net worth years down the line, or 5%, 10%. Right? I'm not trying to get you to buy any certain amount, but it is important to make sure that you know enough to feel good about buying more Bitcoin, because if we're right on this, you want to have a high allocation of Bitcoin. You don't want to be the person that says, yeah, I get it. I stopped watching YouTube videos after I understood what Bitcoin was, and then I bought $500 when I'm worth $100,000. Again, that's not going to really push up the numbers for you much long term. I want to make sure that I keep making videos like this too, because if I was making a video about a different cryptocurrency every single day, what's the value in that, right? I want to tell you what I'm buying, what I'm looking at, what I'm seeing, because that's what's really important, is to continue to grow your conviction in plays that will actually do well. And Bitcoin is the best performing asset over the last 16 years, by far. Let me know your thoughts on this underneath the video. Again, you can check out Margex, you can check out HG Algo. Let me know how rare you think Bitcoin is. What will it mean to be a whole coiner in 20 years? Let me know in the comment section. What will you be able to buy? Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I will see you in the next video. Bye.